so important for children to connect with nature. I mean, like you say, Zorin, there are so many benefits out there, and it's literally outside our front doors and outside our back doors. Once we walk outside and get into that environment of fresh air, there's nothing else like it on this earth, and we all take it for granted, but it's there, and there is so many benefits. I mean, just to name a few, for instance, there's connectiveness for children, so they can understand that this world is a big network of connectiveness, and they have a part to play in it. They can look down and they can see ants building nests, and if they lift up stones, sometimes, like my children did the other day, they saw a whole ant nest, and they had the larvae and the key workers, and my children were just fascinated just looking at the ants all scurrying around, obviously, and trying to hide all their eggs and the larvae and everything. But my children were just fascinated, and if children see that, they'll understand their connectiveness, and also their confidence can grow once they spend time outside. Their creativity can grow. They seem to take in things and they understand things. And I think one of the biggest things, I think, is you can spark an absolute love of learning and in engaging. And I think that's a lifelong skill that I think any parent and any guardian would want for their child.
Absolutely. I think the benefits are multi-phase. There are many elements to this. So what was the moment when you decided that conservation will be your mission? Do you remember the moment?
I do, actually. It was when I heard our environmentalist and well-known television presenter, it was Sir David Attenborough, actually. He said sometime last year that the Garden of Eden was no more. And I thought, that's appalling. I just thought, we've been hearing the stories about nature's in trouble, and we do all we can anyway. But when he actually said those words, the Garden of Eden is no more, I just thought it just compelled me to go and think that I've got to do more. I've got to do all I can do now, because it's not just doing the bare minimum or just doing what you can do. I needed to step it up. And around that time also another report came out about the decline of insects globally. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I need to do what I can, really. I need to play my part in this. So I filled up my garden with lavender. I'm not a gardener at all. But I bought every plant imaginable that bees would like, and I just planted them all out there in the garden to make a bee haven for them, really, and insects that seem to be loving it. I let part of my garden go wild. We did beach cleans. We just stepped up, really, all the things that we've been doing, because myself and my children, we love nature, we respect nature. The one thing I think that changed everything was when I was having a conversation with my dear friend, who is now I know as Mother Earth. She's our narrator and co-founder. We had a discussion, and it literally jumped out at us that we could do something. We could come together, and Tales from Mother Earth came about very shortly after that, really. I said, well, we need to write stories, and we need to educate children, we need to connect with children. And we did some research around that time as well, talking to families, talking to nurseries, and talking to wildlife centres, and it became very apparent that it's all about educating children. And if you can educate children by the very nature of talking to children and engaging with children, you will also be engaging with parents and adults as well, and the guardians of those children. So from that point, sometime back in June actually of last year, I started writing Phoebe the Bee, which is our first story, and I'd probably written it in probably about 3 or 4 days, and then I tested it on my children, and tested it on a few other children. It was their bedtime stories, the whole of the primary education age range, if you like. And when we were doing that, we had a few engaging games and interactive sessions with the children. And one of them is like a timeline where we go from modern day right the way back to dinosaurs, really. And we asked them on this timeline to clip on Phoebe the Bee, where they think bees joined us on this timeline, joined evolution, if you like. And some children weren't aware that bees have been with us for such a long time. and they were putting them around the pyramids, or they were putting them around the Romans, for instance. And it was quite an eye-opener to us to realise that, and to also engage and educate the children, really, that science tells us that bees have been around ever since flowers evolved, which is in the Cretaceous period of the dinosaurs. And really, it's a symbiotic relationship. You wouldn't have the bees and the pollinators there, really, without the flowers. Amazing at the moment, the local councils around here are also sowing wildflower seeds on the verges, and they're allowing the verges and the sides of the roads to become like bee corridors, if you like, as well, which I think is a fabulous initiative.
Exactly.
That's how it goes. It's a relationship. I mean, we're in this relationship too, but unfortunately over the last 50, 60 years they've been in decline. So we need to help them, and we need to learn to respect them, and really do all we can, because they are incredible insects. And again, they join the whole family of the pollinators that are so important to all of us on this planet. We wouldn't have the biodiversity we have on our rich planet without these pollinators doing their work. I know science tells us, for instance, the psychological benefits and the physiological benefits, really, of walking in nature, of appreciating nature. I think it's in Japan, isn't it? They do forest bathing, where they actually are prescribed people that are feeling depressed or unhappy or going through a very difficult time to actually go and walk through a forest, because the benefit of walking through a forest, it can actually stay with you for a good couple of weeks. And they call it forest bathing. One of the joys that I love about being a parent, actually, is the fact that I can show my children those moments where their mind just expands. And a lot of those opportunities that I've shown them have been with nature. Like, I took them up to Wales, for instance, and we saw the red kite feeding station. The red kite is like it's a bird of prey, and it's being reintroduced to areas throughout England. And I was aware that there was a feeding station up there, and I took my children up there, and it was incredible, because there was like 200-300 red kites in the sky coming down for food, and we just watched in amazement. It was incredible. And I encouraged that with my children, from looking at the ant nest, like I said earlier, that was under my neighbour's stone when he was actually mowing his lawn. The cord actually moved the stone, and there it was. And I quickly called the children to see it, because it was incredible. To taking them to see red kites, to walking in the forest, to getting that fresh air, to getting that environment, it can only be a benefit for children. I mean, when we were doing school story workshops, for instance, we only did a small number of these, because obviously the lockdown that happened in England, that was early March. So we launched in March. We did a few story workshops in assemblies for primary schools, and then obviously everything was in lockdown, and we had a number of other events that had to be postponed, understandably. But once the school home time, for instance, the parents we would be there, obviously, because we'd be happy to sell our books and the CDs to actually this book. So we were happy to sell this book at the end of the day, if you like, to the parents that were coming in. And it was incredible, because the children had been in our story workshops, and they loved the story, bless their hearts, and they really encouraged to help bees and realised the importance of bees, realised that what bees can actually do for us. And at the end of the session, it was like, no one person is too small to make a difference. And it was like, what do we need to do to help bees? And it was a chant, really. We need to go out and plant more wildflowers. And they kind of left the assembly kind of buzzing, really, because they knew what they needed to do. And I think they felt empowered that they could do that. I mean, I think there's nothing more fantastic, really, than a child being able to engage with nature and feel empowered by actually helping and doing something about it themselves. Like, for instance, if a child goes and grows wildflower seeds, 3 to 4 months' time, those flowers will come up, and then the bees will actually go to those flowers. That child can go, I did that. And what an amazing feeling that is for a child to be involved and engaged in that process. And that child will know from that point that they've made that happen, and that bee has benefited directly from their action. And I think that's a huge lesson for a child to know, that they can feel empowered, that they've actually done that and created that, and what a benefit it's provided. I'm very aware over the last 3-4 years we've been saying about the climate change, and the fact that we need to keep carbon dioxide as much as we can out of the air, and otherwise the temperatures is going to be soaring, and it's going to be incredibly warm and hot. And with the forest fires and everything that's been happening across the globe, you can see how change is happening. And I think really children have been listening to those messages and realizing that it's not looking that great. And so I really wanted to help them really to feel it's that empowerment again, but it's also that feeling of calm, and we can make a difference. We can get involved with this, and to replenish my soul in a way. And I think us as human beings, some people have forgotten about that, and maybe they've turned away from it because they think it doesn't matter. But I think it matters incredibly, and I think people really need to realize the benefits of not just going out in nature, but what it can do for their soul, and how we're talking about adults now, I guess, making them feel better about themselves. We as humans came away from those areas that we used to populate in massive numbers. Nature has filled them in some respects. I mean, we heard of dolphins in the canals in Venice, which is incredible. And I know in Wales there was a town that was besieged by goats or sheep. I think it was mountain goats or something, came down from the mountains and ran havoc in the town. And we've seen, I think it's monkeys in Delhi that have been running around in the markets, and I think we've seen more wildlife when we've gone out for our walks, because of that less noise and that less pollution. They've been coming out a little bit more, I think, and I thoroughly believe that we can live in harmony. It has been shown in pockets of the world we can live in harmony. Equality needs to change, I think. The rich side of the world and the poor side of the world, I think, needs to come together more, because it's amazing that the poor side of the world is where a lot of the richness and the abundance and the biodiversity lives, and we can't afford for that to disappear and for that to go. So we need to somehow protect that from this side, and we need to work in harmony with the organizations and collaborate with the organizations to try and allow these this understanding, if you like, of the world as a one world, rather than pockets within the planet and different governing organizations. I believe we need to really come together and have a global solution and a global plan in place to help and protect.
Like you said, there is some positivity. People are now getting aware, and it's because everyone is coming together, and initiatives like yours is great, because it's making the next generation ready from a very young age. So it's highly appreciable, ma'am. So do you see that, like you said, that the world is a big ecosystem and everything is connected, and the policy at one place would affect another, right?
Yes, yeah, very much so. It is all connected. I mean, it has to be connected. I mean, I was learning the other day about trees connecting with each other as well, and they talk to each other, and I know that's going to make me sound a bit crazy, but once you actually look into these things, the biodiversity that we have on this world, the complexities of nature go beyond our brain. They really do. It's incredible, the symbiotic relationships that are out there, the things that we're only scratching the surface of. Like, I mean, the bottom of the ocean, for instance. I don't think we really know the bottom of the ocean. And really, in a way, I don't want to know the bottom of the ocean. I'd like to leave it there and just let it get on and let it do its thing. I don't see why we have to tread on everything on this world. Some parts of this world I don't think we should touch. Just let's leave them alone.